Looking ahead for Thomas Müller as well in the Whitecaps, do you think he would have enough in the tank to go through an MLS Cup playoff run? Because that's a grind of games where you can't really take a day off, Memo.
You can take a day off, I think, because you already qualified, right? I think that, again, it's all about using the games that matter, right? I don't know what you think here, Alex, but the team has been playing without him really well. And, the cups, when the MLS Cup really truly does start, that is when the grind starts. But I think there's an international break in there somehow, right? So you get time off then too. It's certainly not something that he's not used to.
They play in the international break, and I wonder if they're saving him for that, because they have a very big game away to Orlando where they're going to be missing a lot of guys. And almost this stretch, while you have all your internationals, that's why I'm wondering, okay, save him, because Kenji Cabrera might be gone with Peru and some of the other guys, and then maybe Muller might be saved. So I think that this is just the stretch for the Whitecaps. They kind of have to juggle a lot of things because they want to push for the Shield. Ideally, you finish top 2 in the West so that you're pretty much guaranteed home field advantage as far as you can go. So it's just kind of, a juggling act, because they do have a lot of games to make up. Like, this next stretch isn't easy. It's been Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. Like, that's rough for a lot of them. And I think that's also why they've been so cautious.
And do you think that when the MLS Cup playoffs come around and you have the best of 3 series and then you start going into the single knockout, do you think Muller and the Whitecaps first choice players will have enough ability to go through gauntlet like that? Because we've seen them get injured right, left, and center this season, Alex.
Well, I think that's the hope. The only real concerns I'd have looking is Tristan Blackman going to be back in time, and what version of Ryan Gauld will be there? Because obviously he looks close to making a return, but how good he'll be, we'll see. But otherwise, because I think it's a lot of short-term stuff, and I think they've been more cautious. Like Manuel mentioned, if these were games of consequence, maybe it's a different story with some of these players, right? Like a lot of the guys like Pupe, White, Muller, they're all like super close. It's day to day. It's not weeks or months like with the weeks in the case of a Blackman. So no, I think they should be fine. And even the best of 3, there is a bit of an advantage where you could lose the first game, and it's not like a traditional home and away where you lose the first game 3-0 and you're screwed. You could lose the first game 8-0 and it's a fresh game. So I think there's also going to be a bit of flexibility heading into those playoffs where Jesper Sorensen knows with that best of 3, as long as they get through it to the single games, he can maybe get a bit creative especially if they finish second or first in the West and you're playing fodder out of the wild card game or a 7th place team.
I mean, it's always such a risk, isn't it? Because remember, Inter Miami fell at the first hurdle.
First round 3 games against 8th place Atlanta, or 9th, exactly. I guess they would have been, because they finished 9th.
So it's such a hard thing to determine whether playoff or knockout stage football. It's always very hard to tell what's going to happen. You have to be in the best form. I remember couple years ago when St. Louis won Western Conference, right, and then also fell at the first hurdle. The best teams in the regular season are not always the ones that win the title at the end of MLS Cup, right? Doesn't always happen. I think LAFC is the last to do it. And so that is the big risk, right? It's probably why Blake made the bet about wearing lederhosen for a week, because, MLS Cup, you're the best team going into it, there's still the risk that it doesn't happen. So, I think I always very, very cautious when it comes to wagering on that part of the season. It makes it a lot of fun. I think MLS Cup is one of the best things in football, period, because you don't know how it's going to end. I love that the league is decided in that matter. There's such parity already in Major League Soccer, right? And that just adds another element to it. But that means that for the Whitecaps, who are maybe one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league, there is no guarantees when it goes into that part of the season. And they did the right thing, similar to, and this is maybe a parallel to last year's winner, and they're paying a heavy price for it this year. LA Galaxy added Marco Reus at the same time then Whitecaps added Thomas Müller, and Roy's maybe not quite as big of an impact player than Müller is for the Whitecaps, but he joined a team that was maybe a bit more stacked, or had another player already who was or is, once he's fit again, and Ricky Puig is one of the biggest impact players in Major League Soccer. Adding Royce helped them get across the line in the final against New York Red Bulls, because when Ricky Puig went out with an injury, when he tore his ACL in the semi-final, right, they had another player there that could play that role, right? And I think the addition of Thomas Müller at the stage when they added is built towards that, trying to emulate that. LAFC did the same with Bale, right? He came on, not a big impact player for LAFC, but he did score in that final, right? Managed them to get them across the line against a very, very, very good Philadelphia Union side. This is what this is all about, but there's no guarantees.
And if you had to pick a team in MLS right now that looks like it would win MLS Cup, who would it be? And is it the Whitecaps, Manuel?
I hate making that sort of prediction, because in the West we have San Diego as well, right? We have teams that could make. I'm just looking at the standings right now, just to get a bit of an idea. But when you look at the standings, right? So Vancouver is first in the West by points average, second behind San Diego. But then you have Minnesota in there, LAFC, Seattle will always do really well in the playoffs. Who knows how far they're going to go. And then in the Eastern Conference, you have Philadelphia. Okay, cool. Whitecaps beat them heavily, 7-0, right? Cincinnati, very deep team. Charlotte have been very good. New York City FC, also a very good team. And then there's a certain Lionel Messi, who finally wants to win a significant trophy over here as well. Although Thomas did say his welcome video, Leo, I'm coming for you. So maybe that is the final in Vancouver at BC Place. Whitecaps against Inter Miami.
Yeah, it's interesting. Both there's a lot of good teams this year, but it's yet to be seen how many of them are great teams, because for all of them, they all have their flaws, right? Like San Diego, they show a lot of good, but it's always tough for an expansion team to make that navigation through the playoffs for the first time. Minnesota, we know, are very flawed. The Whitecaps can't stay healthy. Seattle, I'd always take a look at Seattle, but we'll see. They've also dealt with a lot of injuries. Leagues Cup took a lot out of them. In the East, Philadelphia, I really like with what Bradley Carnell's done. Cincinnati's seemed a little more flawed than we thought they'd be. Charlotte, they've figured out how to defend, but their underlyings aren't great. Like, this is a really weird year of MLS. So I think the playoffs actually could be very prone to upsets. And maybe that's to the Whitecaps' advantage, where a guy like Müller, who's a serial winner, can kind of help them navigate the fact that there's no real clear favorite, and it's begging for any team to grab it. And I think the Whitecaps have as good of a shot as any if they can get healthy. And that's obviously a tough if to contend with versus others, but their underlyings are good. They're well coached. The results speak for themselves. So that's usually the sort of things you'd bet against, or you bet for in a playoff environment.
I guess you want to finish first, so you have the potential of hosting, right?
As deep as you can, right? Because you can obviously have what happened last year, where Red Bulls and Galaxy both finished so low that the Galaxy were lucky enough to host. So.
But that can happen quickly. Even if you finish second or third, you still have a pretty good chance of hosting the final.
The Whitecaps, I don't see them winning MLS Cup this year, as much as I'd love to see it. I think they're a semifinal team, like Western Conference Final, and they'll lose to LAFC, who I think goes on to win MLS Cup, because what LAFC has been doing with Sun and Buanga is just another level. And then in the East, I
want to see it against a team that's not RSL. I actually really like what Sun's doing, but they've also been beating up on some pretty
twice
middling teams. So that is the one asterisk I have on LAFC right now. Is prove it at a higher level.
Yeah. Also, they haven't been consistent.
You don't have to be consistent, though. You just have to be right at the right time for playoffs, right?
I mean, I'm with Alex on this. Heung-min comes off a long season. Has played a lot of football. They are still they still have to push for a good spot in the Western Conference, so they can't really take the foot off the paddle the same way than the Whitecaps do. And there has been so much upheaval at that club. Steve Girondolo, of course, leaving. end of the season. The comings and goings of star players like Giroud leaving halfway through the season to go back to France to play for Lille. There's been a lot of trying to make this work. Bouanga has painted over the cracks. Only third player in MLS history to score 20 goals plus in 3 consecutive years, right? He's painted over a lot of the cracks. And you take him out of a game, I think they're in trouble. And the other thing is too, Ben, Whitecaps like playing against LAFC.
They also lose to LAFC a lot of the time.
Well,
Yeah,
they
but
won
that's
this year,
because they're
missing
good.
a lot of guys with that Sabi goal in LA. So I think this is also a very different Whitecaps than the Vanni Sartini Whitecaps.